2022 production.
Tayu, depending on where you are, I greet you. Nusiemi betwa bumbote bana bayisolele. Molweni abantwana abanguni. Mpo salama watoto wa Mungu. Sawubona. Yes, this is Africa and Africa is our business. And today on The Fire, we sit at the crossroads of rhythm and revelation. In this space, truth walks with music and music walks with fire. Our guest is no ordinary artist. He is a lawyer, a storyteller, a voice that stitches together Afrobeat, funk, jazz, reggae, and soul. He is the leader of Odi and the Big Band, a sound that carries both joy and justice, both groove and prophecy. For the next few minutes, we move beyond entertainment into vibration, into what it means to heal, to awaken, to stand unshaken in identity, to stay present, to stay open, and to let the frequency carry you. Tayu. Thank you, Odi.
Thank you very much.
Who is Odi beyond the titles of lawyer and musician?
Just another human being born in Africa and living in Africa as well, and breathing Africa and dreaming of the day Africa will stand up to be counted, you know. That's what it is. I'm an acolyte of these great saints like Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, and a few more. People who dedicated their lives to the emancipation of Africa and to establishing consciousness in the minds of Africa, you know, which we're in really, really dire need of. So basically, apart from being whatever else, I'm a man dedicated to the realization of those things. Yeah.
Thank you for that in-depth response. Growing up, what sounds, voices, or musicians planted that rhythm inside you that we so much enjoy?
Yeah, growing up, really, I grew up, maybe you could say I had a privileged background in the way that people see privilege, you know. And my dad was educated at Cambridge in the 40s, you know. And he had the taste from those colonial days. So around around the house when I was really young, I used to hear the sounds of the big bands. You know, artists like Glenn Miller, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, you know, Oliver Nelson, you know. Those are the sounds that he was really into. And I really picked it up then. I really loved those sounds then. So the earliest sounds I liked was big band, swing, you know, so, and it never really left me, you know. So whatever else happened came after big band. Then I got into, as I grew up, I got into rhythms that were contemporary to my time, you know, because the big band was not contemporary to my time. It was contemporary to my dad's time. But I really got into it, you know, I dug into it. But later on, I got into what was going on in my own scene too, like pop. Of course, I like guys like, you know, the rock sounds, James Brown, you know, Jimi Hendrix, you know, great guys. You know, Hugh Masekela came and all those people, you know, and a whole lot of guys. You know. So it was what went into my brain was a whole mix. That's why what's coming out of my brain is a whole mix as well. You know, that's what it is.
And it's interesting you should mention the man from whose loins we are blessed with you. He was a high court judge. How did that background of justice and discipline shape your rhythm as an artist?
Yeah, it did. No, because as you can imagine, there was a whole lot of discipline around the house. You know, being a judge and everything, you have to do things right. You have to go to school right. You have to go to bed on time and all those things. So, and that translates to music, because music is discipline. Music obeys the rules of progression, of rhythm, of measurements, time. Music is very, very disciplined. So it definitely influenced me. But the kind of music I like to play anyway takes a lot of, it goes with a lot of discipline and measurements. I write almost every instrumentation in my songs, because I don't really like leaving it to chance or to just jamming or vibing. I like to, I'm a little bit regimented in how I write in my music, which is not to say the musicians don't have room for improvisation. No, they do.
And now, when we talk of music, Odi and the Big Band is just more than a group. It feels like a movement to me and to many others who I know will agree. What energy do you channel when you bring out so many sounds together? Odi, are you still with us? We apologize. Our guest seems to have hanged. We are live with Odi Ikpeazu, the leader of Odi and the Big Band.
Odi Bantu production. Odi Bantu production.
Yes, we were live with Odi of the Big Band. We seem to have lost connection momentarily. So we await his return. Yes. As we wait for our guest to reconnect, let us enjoy music from Odi and the Big Band.
Odi Bantu production.
We sincerely apologize for that. We depend on network structures that may disappoint us sometime. So we are grateful to our guest. We seem to be having network difficulties. We are working as fast as we can to resolve that. As you can see on your screens, our guest is with us, but the network seems to be disappointing.
Odi Bantu production.
Yeah, just
We have our guest back. We continue to apologize for that. Network does disappoint,
yeah, there's.
but that will not
So
stop
sorry,
us.
very sorry about that. Yeah.
No problem, no problem. So we were at that point where we were asking, what energy do you channel? Because Odi and the Big Band brings so many sounds. What energy are you channeling?
Well, I'm channeling the energy of consciousness, consciousness, but with being ferried with a vehicle of rhythm and strong African beats, but really strong rhythms and vibrations, because music makes it easy for messages to go across. Yeah, I might as well be reading a speech on a rostrum, Yeah, but maybe sometimes it gets boring that way. So when you sing it, people might listen because a lot of people have their short attention span, Well, with the background of rhythm and beat and stuff, you could get people to listen quite a bit, at least more than they might have if it wasn't for music, you know. Like the great statesmen, Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, Sekou Toure, Amilcar Cabral. Most of those guys, they wrote books. Julius Nyerere, they wrote books, but how many people are going to read them? You know, how many people are going to read them? But if you put the message in the music, you probably get more people attention. So that's the essence of music. And that's why music is
Indeed.
great. Yeah.
And talking about music, in songs like Africa Must Unite and Stop War, these songs hold both prophecy and urgency. How are these songs born? Is it the melody first or is it the message?
Yeah, but the reality first. The reality first. Because when the reality strikes you, that anything can come first. It could strike you when you're playing your guitar, fiddling around with your guitar. You could do that. Or it could strike you while you're fiddling around with your pen or with your laptop, and you put down the lyrics first. Somehow. So really, there are no rules. There are no real rules to these things. It comes, but the basis is reality, and the reality is that Africa must unite. Because in the absence of unity, we are sitting ducks. We are nobodies. We are nothing if we don't unite. All the individual African nations, they can't sit at the conference tables with the big nations of the West, you know. But united, yeah, we could do something. Individually, no way. And we could deceive ourselves all we like, or pretend all we like. But the reality is that there's no way any individual African nation gonna sit at a conference table with, for example, the United States of America. That makes sense. Because the United States of America is actually 50 countries, more than 50 countries, calling themselves one country. And here you have America having a meeting with Nigeria or Ghana or Togo, and you think it's a real meeting. No way. You're meeting with 50 countries. It's crazy. So
And
unless
it's
Africa comes
interesting
together,
you should mention. And interesting, you should mention, because now you brought it in. We have to speak it out. You've been very vocal against colonial legacies, be it the law, rejecting the wigs, the gowns, all that gobbledygook that they like. They want us to make. They want us to follow, which is not even fancy. It is ritualistic and has nothing to do with our ancestors. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what does true decolonization mean for you?
Yeah, full decolonization means the substantial aspects, because there are things we can't really do away with at this point in the world, in the chronology of the world. There are many things that are worldwide now, like jeans. Jeans is like the national uniform of everyone in the world. Okay, right. So, but there are things of the mind that will have to locate and delete. Like things that mean a lot. Like for instance, like you said, I couldn't bring myself to wear the wig and the gown because of what it represents. The feudal ideology of the medieval Europe, the blonde wig, the what do you call it, the gown.
The
I
gown.
didn't see why, as an African, I had to wear it just to uh, uh, propagate the law. The law is in my brain, not on my head. And I know the law well enough without having to wear vestiges of feudalism, despotism, slavery, colonialism, imperialism. Those weights on my head just because I want to propagate the law. It's absolutely not necessary. So I gave example of America. In the United States, they don't wear the wig and gown, even though they are cousins of the British. They're related by blood. But they did away with the wig and gown because you know what they say: the love of liberty brought us here. So they couldn't keep on wearing those things that reminded them of the days of the despots and the feudal overlords. So I was thinking along those lines. And we as Africans, we have more reasons than Americans not to wear the wig and gown. Because in addition to the feudalism that Americans wanted to run away from, we now have to run away from the slave trade, colonialism, neocolonialism, imperialism. There's so much we need to run away from. So as far as those things, those ceremonial aspects are concerned, we should do away with those kind of things. Going by the substantial aspects, for instance, like we're speaking English, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
The lingua franca of Nigeria is English. We can't go back on that anymore. So I'm the sort of Pan African that face reality. There are things we cannot change at this point. But those things we can change, by all means, we're gonna change. We should change them at least. So that's the whole point.
And
Yeah.
council says still we are taking out the thorn with the pass. Do you believe that the African jurisprudence has matured? Because most of the countries we have are relying on English common law. You know, these are laws that were structured under colonial rule. And you find some of these laws are still being enforced in our courtrooms without them having judicial review, and they are being oppressive to our people.
Yeah. In as much as we can't reinvent the wheel, like I told you, there are things you can change, and there are things you can no longer change. And wisdom is when you know the difference between the two. We have structured our society so much along the lines of the Western society that it is almost an impossibility to totally detach substantially from some of the tenets of that civilization. Or like we have to travel by planes, for example. We don't make planes here. We have to do certain things. So the thing is to face reality. we in the for example, if you take company law, for instance,
Mm.
in the traditional African society, there were no companies as we know it. There were no corporations, right? Yeah, but these
We
days
just,
we have to deal with company. Yeah, we have to deal with company law because we have been forced by global evolution to have companies. I'm sure you have a company you deal with. I have a company, so we have to abide by corporate laws that are synchronized worldwide. Okay, so if I had to deal with deal with a company based in your country, there are rules of international law and obligations and company and corporate regulations that we have to both abide by. So things like that, yeah, we can overlook those things. But whenever it comes to things that are substantial to our existence, we have to be creative in thinking. And the most important aspect of what we really have to do is unification. You see, unification is absolutely necessary. We have to unite because in the absence of unification, I keep hammering on that. African individual nations are nothing and they will remain so. Okay? Because we're dealing
most
with
of them.
constellations in the West. We're dealing with mega nations like United States, 50 countries. We're dealing with the European Union, big countries all coming together. We're dealing with China, another continent of ancient civilization, big. India, big. Australia is a continent, but they call it a country, you see. And we have to deal with Australia. And you're dealing with Australia as Guinea-Bissau and Togo and stuff and Nigeria and things like that. It's not gonna work. We're not big enough, you know. We're just not big enough. We're punching above our weight. The starting point for anything we want to be as Africans, we have to go to the rule books, the roadmap of Marcus Garvey and Kwame Nkrumah. In the absence of that, we're just perambulating around the same axis.
And senior, you're the tree with the apples, and I'll be doing my viewers an injustice if I did not throw stones. So you are very familiar with the doctrine of justice. It must not only be done, but must be seen. In Nigeria today, do you feel that the maxim still holds weight, or has the perception of justice been eroded? And at Africa at large, if we are to
Yeah,
be open.
largely, justice has been tainted by corruption in our society. You know, because the need the people have for making money, erodes all the tenets of justice. Brings corruption into the judicial system, and it brings corruption on the streets, man. The leaders may have we may have issues with our leaders in Africa, but you see, right there on the streets, the people on the streets, we have just as much a problem as with the leader. The attitude of the people on the street, the money consciousness, the need to cheat one another, the need to defraud one another, kill one another, it runs on the streets, man, not just in the government offices. So the justice system is tainted all the way, right from the top to the bottom. And some of these things are caused by that lack of value. We're not valuable to ourselves. And this is tied to, ultimately tied to the fact that as individual nations, we are totally almost worthless. Africans have to realize that the only way we stand a chance, not one of the ways we stand a chance, the only way we stand a chance is the unification of Africa. And the basis for that unification, let me tell you, is not love. It's not because we love one another that we have to unite, or because we want to kiss and romance. No, we should reunite out of necessity. like people who are passengers on a sinking ship, the way they unite, they don't need to love one another really. All they need to do is pull together and keep the ship afloat so that they get to shore. You might find mortal enemies on board a sinking ship working together to take the water out, you know, until they get to the shore. That's
True,
it.
true. And counselor, it's amazing that you just put that across, because sometimes they say we marry for love, but now we are marrying for necessity, because when you marry for love, things don't quite end well. And still on that
Yeah.
tone of the legal tone, we say equity will not suffer a wrong without a remedy. In music,
Yeah.
yeah, in music, your song seems to offer that remedy. So where does music come in as the amicus curiae of where the law has failed?
Yeah. Yeah. Music is life, in as much as everybody is musical and everybody sings. Some people sing in the bathroom, some people sing, whistle on the street as they walk along. Music is life. The birds sing, everything sings. So, in as much as music is life, it permeates everything we do, you know, it permeates everything we do. And in a world, especially in the African world where there's so much suffering, so much deprivation, so much disease, so much lack of privilege, so much lack of communication and lack of cooperation. Music fills the void. Music fills the void. You know, when you're suffering, you sing. When you're suffering, you sing a lot. And the suffering could be physical, it could be mental, but there's a therapeutic use of music in the absence of real policies being put in place. So, because I know Africa is in a bad shape because we're all standing alone. All the countries are standing alone. I know it's in a bad shape. So when I sing Africa must unite, for that 5 minutes, I in my mind, there's a make believe that Africa is actually united. Maybe 5 minutes later, I come back to reality. But for a while, I get that vibration, and it's invaluable to me.
But don't you think Africa will object and cry, non est factum, it is not my deed, it was imposed upon me?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
And don't you think Africa itself will object to that notion and say and claim non est factum? It's not my fault. I blame this on the colonizer. I blame this on neo-colonization. I blame this on Western policy.
Yeah, but how long are you going to keep blaming your enemy, if you want to call them enemies? I mean, there comes a time when you have to take your own destiny in your own hands and do what you can for yourself. Africans do that a lot. They sit back and blame everything on the West. Listen, the West did what they had to do. If I was a white boy, I'll be proud of my parents. Do you know that? Yeah, because they took over the world. So whatever they did it to for the good of their children and their generations to come. So in that way, I don't sit around blaming them. What I need to do is sit together with you and the rest of our brothers and sisters and say, look, listen, this situation is the way it is right now. What do we do? What are we going to do to get out of this? We know these big bad guys have put us into this position, but we're not going to gain anything just sitting down every day crying about big bad guys. The big bad guys were good to their children. They are good guys to their children. So how are we going to make ourselves good guys to our own children? That should be our preoccupation. That's it.
True. We can no longer keep pointing the finger, and that is why we are grateful for platforms like the Festival of African Culture and Arts, that bringing back this African renaissance. We are getting connected on so many levels. Even a series like this, The Road of Festac, where we get to understand the participants in Africa. We get to realize that these people don't just wake up and decide we want to speak freedom. We want to speak the liberation of our people. Africa should be united. This dialogue, they've had it, but now we are actually making it. And I am really grateful for your patience. So allow me to just slot in one last question, because you've already been patient with us. You've been patient with the networks. You've been patient with so many things, including Africa herself. So let me sneak one. Let me sneak one more question into that. And this one is on the premise of what you just concluded speaking. When the music goes silent, and when you've put down the constitution and all the legal files, and you've decided it's time to rest with your ancestors, one, what do you want to be remembered for? Two, any young person watching you, either in Cotonou, in Lagos, or here in Nairobi, or even in Durban, Joburg, or even in the diaspora, because Africa is not limited. What would you tell them, Nkulu?
Yeah, I would like to be remembered, possibly the way that I right now remember Kwame Nkrumah and Marcus Garvey and people like Julius Nyerere. I remember them because they showed the light, so that people following might see the way. They might not have taken us to the promised land, but they pointed in the direction. They pointed in the direction, and that's all they could do with the tools they had. So if I kick the bucket now and I want to be remembered, if the people coming after can remember me the way I remember guys like that, then maybe they'll be inspired to go a few more steps down down the road of liberation. A few more steps further, and who knows, they will in turn inspire some other new guys who will in turn go a few more steps until maybe, hopefully, someday we'll arrive at the El Dorado, right? Yes.
El
That's it.
Dorado, the land of
Yes.
gold. But
Yeah.
we've always we've always been sitting on the land of gold, and today we have had the experience to partake of but a piece of that gold through your wisdom, through your music. And we are grateful, Odi, for I see you, Africa sees you. And before you kick that proverbial bucket, can you
Yeah.
have many more years of cooking on the magic pot that is rhythm, that is law, and that is everything that you represent? We thank you. We honor you for taking the time early this morning with the network disruptions and all. You stood for what you believe in, which is Africa, and we are grateful. So I look forward to seeing you where it is. Most of us will be convening to close the African Year in Style. Get your tickets from www.festacafrica.org. This has been Modamaki Washira Owakirago, cultural ambassador to Festac, with the one, the only, the legendary Odi Ikpeazu of the Big Band. And that is how we handle Africa's business. Until next time, catch you on the next one. And in the words of those in Ghana, we say, Akwaba.
Ah,
Welcome.
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Nkosi.
Uh,
A Yakubi, Bantu production.
That was good.